Welcome YouTube. Wanted to make a quick little video to show my butcher block countertop. This is for a computer desk I'm making for my wife, and as you can see here, this is the overall design I did in SketchUp. So we're making that top, and this is soft maple that's just coming home, getting milled up. Saw the puppies sitting on it. And so we're left with all these wood strips that I want to eventually glue together, but we want to have some kind of random cuts and spacing throughout it so it actually looks like butcher block instead of just a bunch of straight wood. So you can see those are some of the examples of the glue up that I've done, and we'll get to the video here in a minute. That's kind of part of the panel. It's going to be a big 7-foot L-shaped computer desk. So here I'm showing kind of one of the main problems and reasons I wanted to make the video here. It's because when I was first doing some of this testing, my miter gauge wasn't 100% accurate. It was the one that came with the saw. So here I'm showing the finished top surface of what I was doing previously. This is just a little mock-up of the cuts that I was making and the problem I was having. And then I'll show the solution for what I ended up doing that kind of accounts for any variances that you may have in your miter gauge. If there's a little bit of movement and you've got two pieces you need to kind of join together end to end, this is a little technique I made. So here I'm cutting both the pieces with the finished surface back, which is the way I was doing it previously. And then when the two pieces join up, see, it kind of does this rocking chair type of thing. So it was just because the miter surface or the miter gauge was just barely off at a couple, like maybe 2 degrees. But when you have 2 degrees and 2 degrees, when they mirror together, it's off by 4 degrees, which is a pretty big difference. So what I did was, here you're going to see later on in the video, this is again just a mock-up of what I'm doing, but I'm putting both the finished surfaces together and cutting them at the same time, face to face. And this does two things. The first thing it does is, even if your miter gauge is off a few degrees, which I purposely set mine off 5 degrees here just for this little demonstration, even if you do, and I apologize for being off screen right here, but you can see that it doesn't matter. Even though that's off 5 degrees, that's not a perfectly perpendicular cut. They're going to match up just fine. And the other thing that it does really well is, since the two finished faces are together when they run through the saw, you don't get any tear out because they're pushed against each other. There's nowhere for the wood fibers to rip. So as soon as you run it through, those mating pieces give you a really smooth cut. So I guess that was the first thing I learned along the way to do. And you can see me making sure my miter gauge, which by the way I bought an Incra, and so it's no longer the stock gauge, and it's already helping me a lot more. So I really don't even need to go through this trouble, but I just figured it was worth just a little bit of extra effort to make sure that in case that miter gauge does flex, and you can see I've got like a poplar backing on it, if it does flex just a little bit, it's not going to be a big deal. So here I'm actually doing some of the long strips that I'm eventually going to glue together, and I'm actually making my first cut for the video to show exactly what it's like on a real piece instead of on a mock-up piece. So again, the faced edges are together, and you'll see I'm just going to do a smooth cut, and right there is where the two pieces meet, and there would normally be some tear out, but since they're face to face, there's very minimal if no tear out. You can see I'm kind of opening it up like a book, and I've got my arrows drawn for where my two boards are going to line up, and that's my super smooth cut I'm showing off, but that's where the pieces are going to end up kind of mating together. I did want to show this because in some situations the pieces were getting pretty long and hanging off pretty far off the side of the table saw, so I used just a quick clamp. I got a really nice Festool quick clamp, excuse me, I really like them. And so I just put it on there just to show, rather than get your fingers too close to the blade and be worrying about it slipping, to go ahead and clamp your pieces down if they're longer and hanging far off your table saw, and that'll help you. This shot, I put some blue tape on all of the random cuts just to show kind of where the mocked pieces are all going to lay out. So that's a good little portion of my 7-foot table. And then here's where I actually drew and where I'm mocking up how I'm going to do these slip tenons. I'm not sure if they're actually called slip tenons, but that's what I'm calling them. So I've got my grizzly tenoning jig, and that's what I'm using to make these first cuts, to kind of make a tongue and groove or the slip tenon. And I'll be honest, I haven't been super happy with the grizzly. It seems a little wobbly, the base doesn't sit flat, and it's just in general, I mean, it's the cheapest model out there, so I guess you get what you pay for, but You can see I got some blue tape on the right side there to try to help balance it out and be flat, but it leaves a little to be desired, I guess. I think a little bit's probably my problem too. I need to, you know, tweak it a little more and maybe see if I can get it flatter and see if there's something I'm doing wrong to keep it straight. I did want to show there some of the boards get really high up if you've got like a 5-foot board, so it looks kind of silly coming off the top of your saw, and just be careful, make sure you really clamp it down. Here I'm checking for the height of my, I think it's the shoulder cut is what they call it in a standard tenon, or it could be the cheek. I always get those confused. But I'm just cutting off the waist so that we're left with just the tongue of the slip tenon, or the tongue and groove. Just another little close-up angle of that cut. And I apologize for some of my video framing. I didn't know my camera zooms in a little bit in video mode. So you can see where the pieces are going to mate together, and what I like to do is lay them face down on a flat surface. I actually use a torsion box and not my table saw, but I didn't want to drag my torsion box out, but I'll show that later on. But I use an X-Acto knife to make a very accurate loose line, but it's a really sharp line, sharper than a pencil, so I'm trying to get as accurate as possible. And I lay the faces down on my flat surface because that's the side I care about. If the back side, if these boards aren't exactly the same thickness, it doesn't really matter because the bottom part's going to be under the table. You won't really see them. But I really care about the top and getting it jointed and flush as tightly as possible. So here I'm kind of sneaking up on the cut, and I drew the little pencil marks there to show a area of kind of where the waist is going to be for this groove section of the slip tenon. And I'm just moving the gauge and adjusting it, the tenoning jig, excuse me, and making cuts and sneaking up on it to try to get it as accurate as possible so the pieces fit together. I don't have a dado blade yet, so that's why it's taking a little bit longer, because I'm kind of going through and having to make 5 cuts where I could probably make just 2 with like a 3/8 inch dado or something, but it works. It's just a little bit slow right now. So, and you can see after each cut, I just slowly, change the miter gauge, or I'm sorry, the tenoning jig, and just move it. And here I'm sneaking up on it. I'm getting really, really close to being finished, and I'm just going to mark with a pencil the side that needs to get taken off. Usually just one side or the other needs a tiny smidgen taken off, and then the pieces will mate together just fine. So here I'm sneaking up on that side just to give a whisper pass so the 2 pieces will fit together. This is that torsion box that I built. I just wanted to add 2 pictures of it to kind of show what the inside of it looks like. And the main reason I built this box is so I can make a long, accurate jig to be able to glue it up, and that's the torsion box there. You can see I've got like a taped jig, and that's the actual piece that's locked into place, and I'm about to show me gluing up the next pieces. But the reason I did a torsion box is so it would be super flat and super stable, and I used that tape and a 8-foot straight edge, so I can make sure that that channel that the wood's going to slide into can stay absolutely straight and flat, and the bottom of the box is straight and flat. So when I glue these pieces together, I'm hoping to get the as close as possible that I can to a completely flat straight board and completely flat straight joint. Later on, I'm going to glue all of these wood strips together that I'm doing here. All these 7-foot sections are going to be glued side to side, and I'll use biscuits to help align it, and that'll actually become the the butcher block countertop. But this was one of the things that was giving me a lot of trouble early on. I was trying to figure out how to glue these pieces, and I was trying to just do end grain to end grain, and I finally decided to go with this slip tenon method to give me a little bit more glue surface area than a end grain to end grain joint would do, especially on these thin strips of wood. I've got an Irwin clamp in there that I'm pulling the wood sideways, and then here's my Bessie I've got flipped inside out so that I'm using it as a spreader, and I'm actually pushing those 2 pieces tightly together, and then I'm going to clamp the entire board all the way down the line, put a few clamps just to keep it as straight as possible. I'll leave it in there for 24 hours, pull it out, set it to the side, and then rinse and repeat. Do another one of these. I've got about 20 of these to do, so I'm just kind of taking my time, and I could have tried to do more of these jigs and glue up more things on this torsion box, but one at a time is enough for me, to be honest. It's been an aggravating process to try to get this, and I'm hoping it looks great when it's done. So that's it. Thanks for watching and have a great day.